Yesterday, paper prices for gold briefly popped above $1,750 an ounce for the first time in months. The overhead resistance at 1,750 by the bullion banks and the paper price manipulators is still fairly strong, so it did not stay above $1,750 today. But eventually, that is definitely going to happen because demand for physical metal is very strong. We're seeing an increase in physical demand, especially for gold, out of India, China, and Asia. Also, gold coin sales at the Perth Mint have exploded in February and March. They've made consecutive highs in both February and March. So you had a high in February and then another high recently in March. And then combine that with how it looks like the dollar index, after a brief rally the last 4 to 6 weeks, may finally be done, as the budget deficits here in the US for the month of March just keep growing. It is nuts. Even though the Fed's balance sheet hasn't really done much in the last couple weeks, but it is only a matter of time before the Fed's balance sheet explodes much, much, much higher, given how there's very little foreign demand for US Treasuries. John Adams at Adams Economics, he's out of Australia. He's been doing amazing investigative journalism. This is the type of journalism that the mainstream financial media should be doing and is not doing. He is talking about all the shenanigans, all the games, all the fraud and corruption going on with unallocated accounts at the Perth Mint and Kitco, as well as in London and other bullion banks. So he's been reaching out to his contacts and getting information. It is truly amazing. So take a look at his Twitter. I'll put a link to his Twitter if you want to take a look. Also, there's a hashtag on Twitter, Perth Mint Default. So if you want to search under there, really since March 20th and onward over the last 3 or 4 weeks, there's been an increase in the amount of stories coming out about fraud going on at the Perth Mint with unallocated accounts. We're starting to see even more stories about unallocated accounts and the lack of actual metal at places like Kitco too. So it just shows you of all the paper games and how manipulated gold and silver markets are. But there is a lot of physical demand, whether that's the Perth Mint or big increases in physical demand coming now from India, China, and Asia. So that is what's going to start putting in the bottom in the paper prices. Normally what happens in gold and silver, and I've been in these markets now, and I'm using air quotes here, for over a decade. Normally strong physical demand surges of buying from India, China, Asia. Within a couple months, they put a bottom in the paper price. So that is what has happened over the years, is big increases in physical demand overwhelm the paper price manipulation, and the paper price manipulation becomes less effective. And then the bullion banks and the other paper price manipulators, they do a managed retreat, as James Turk of Gold Money calls it, and then they allow the paper prices to start going back up again, and then they try to defend the manipulated paper, gold, and silver prices at different price levels. So I expect that to happen, especially if demand for physical metal continues to be robust or increased, whether that's with Perth Mint and they're having trouble sourcing physical metal from what it looks like, what John Adams has gathered, how they may be sourcing physical silver from China that they claim to have in the vault with all these unallocated accounts and fractional bullion banking or something similar, since they're not technically a bullion bank. But you shouldn't trust any of these large banks that are bullion banks or any of these large private mints that are going to store your metal for you. And that's the bottom line. So if you don't hold it, you don't own it for the most part. The only physical metal trusts that I trust are the Sprott Physical Silver Trust, the Sprott Physical Gold Trust, the Sprott Central Fund of Canada that they bought that has a 50-50 mix of gold and silver. And I think Sprott also has a platinum and palladium metals trust now. So the Sprott Physical Silver Trust, yes, you need a lot of units to take delivery of the metal, but they actually do reliable independent audits. So you know the metal's there with the serial numbers, and there's a lot of tax benefits to buying and holding those units on paper price smashes. And the other major story I wanted to talk about was the amount of physical silver from the Sprott Physical Silver Trust. So we're way over 130 million ounces. In only 14 months, 73 million ounces now have been added to the Sprott Physical Silver Trust. That is an enormous increase in physical metal. And so far, the amount of physical metal, even though the paper price for silver is barely holding above 25 when I'm recording this short little video, It did peek its head quite a bit above 25 yesterday, but there was paper price smashes today on Friday, April 9th. But the Sprott Physical Silver Trust has not sold any physical silver yet. More physical silver is still coming in as the total physical silver assets under management, the silver inflows, is still increasing. So again, here as I wrap things up, if you want to follow the story, and this is amazing investigative journalism that the mainstream financial media is either too lazy or too stupid or too corrupt to actually do their job. John Adams over at Adams Economics from Australia is doing an amazing job gathering information about all the corruption and incompetence going on at the Perth Mint and Kitco and the bullion banks.